Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Midlife Real Life Chat Show. And you'll probably see we've got one person missing this week because Joe, unfortunately, isn't joining us for this episode. Just to clarify, we sort of started this during lockdown when we all had lots of time on our hands, we weren't doing anything. And of course, as normal life starts to resume, we'll be a bit busier. So for future episodes, Joe will join us for some, but not all of them, because she's focusing on her business launch that she's mentioned before in some of our shows. We're wishing Jo really good luck with that, but hopefully she will be joining us next week. So, but we do have Maggie with us again, Maggie McMillan. Hi, Maggie.
Hi, everybody.
And also we have Valerie Lewis. Welcome, Valerie.
Hi. It's a pleasure.
And Valerie, now you've been in the corporate world, haven't you? But 15 years ago, you trained to be a coach, specialising in helping women navigate through significant life changes. And that's what you're focusing on now, isn't it? Having been made redundant from your corporate world.
That's right.
So if we look at that, I mean, what do you think are like the most difficult life events that women have to deal with, generally speaking?
I think if we look at, say, women at midlife, there are quite a few. One of them, I think, is midlife itself, because that comes with its own little things. We get the menopause, and within the menopause, you've got all the symptoms that go with it. Some women get lots of symptoms, and some don't. I had a full hysterectomy, was it 11 years ago? And that threw me into all sorts of different
turmoil.
Yes. So that's one of them. I think milestone birthdays, significant birthdays, can be another one. When we hit 30, 40, 50, I think each one's different. Another one could be if you've got children and you had them in your 20s, maybe they've reached a certain age where maybe they're going off to university or they're going off to start their own life somewhere else. And I think, I'm sure it affects fathers too, but I think for women, they've lost that particular sense of purpose, or some of them anyway, and they probably feel a bit lost. They've not maybe thought about what they want to do next, if you like. Some of the things, we're getting older, so that might mean some decline in health, aches and pains where we never had them before, some more serious illnesses like cancer or, other illnesses. So those are just a few of the things, really. And another one, I think, is reaching midlife and maybe regretting not having done some of the things that you wanted to do or thought you had time to do. And also an awareness that the clock's ticking. And it's almost like, if I don't do some of the things that I want to do now, I might not get the chance again.
That's so interesting, actually, because that takes me on to a question that I was actually going to ask you later, which is about the sort of advice you would give in those circumstances when about looking forward rather than looking back, when you do feel this sort of, oh my gosh, what have I achieved? I've not got much time left, and that sense of regret, and not just a sense of regret about what you haven't done, but also a sense of regret about some of the things you have done that you wish you'd perhaps done differently.
Yeah. Well, with life coaching, it's not really about advising, even though I like advising. It's more getting you to look at these issues for yourself, if you like. And I think, because if you're regretting some of the things that you wanted to do or that you've done and they didn't quite work out how you wanted to, I think basically, we can't turn the clocks back. So I think you have to sort of put them into some sort of context and think, well, I did this then. If I was to do it now, how would I do it? How would I do it differently? You know, look at what you learned from that, and see what lessons you can bring into whatever it is you want to do next. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I think someone once said to me, you know, the past is the past, and you can't change it. I think, you know, in midlife, a lot of us start to worry more generally, just because there's just all these things you've spoken about. And someone said to me, the past is the past and you can't change it, so there's no point worrying about that. And the future hasn't happened yet.
That's right.
Which I think is interesting. But I think that if you reach our stage in life, and I guess what you're saying is you have to look back at events that you perhaps regret and see them as a learning curve, and acknowledge that yes, you wouldn't do it now, but then at that stage your life was probably very different.
Yeah.
I know, speaking from my own personal experience, I mean, I've recently, I got divorced in the last couple of years, but when I met my now ex-husband, my gut instinct was not to like him.
When you met, sorry.
But my gut instinct was, you know, but he was very charming, you know, could really turn on the charm. Other people around me kept telling me how wonderful he was, and I think I kind of I was talked into this relationship, really. And I was at an age where I was thinking, well, if I don't get married now, I have been previously divorced, but many years before, maybe I won't get married again. And there were things I wanted to do, which are becoming difficult to do on my own, like lots of travel and things. It's always easier to do that with a partner than it is on your own. And I think I just sort of, you know, got myself, you know, basically talked into it. And unfortunately, as happens, I should have stuck with my gut instinct. So I know from that experience, you know, I know now, if something's telling me this, then trust it. And I think also, what it's taught me is to look at people's actions and not just the words. Because often you get carried away with what people are saying to you, but then when you look back, actually their behaviour didn't match the words. So that's certainly something I think I learnt through that, which I hopefully will take forward. I'm not intended to get married again, by the way. I'd rather travel on my own, if we ever travel again. I know, I don't need a partner to travel anymore. I'm only going as far as the back garden, so it doesn't matter. You know, but it's those sorts of things, isn't it, really?
Yeah. And it's interesting because as you were talking, I thought, I'll wait until you finish and I'm going to ask you, what was your gut instinct?
Yeah.
I was just going to ask you, what was your intuition, you know, what's your intuition telling you? And I think that's something else, when we're younger, we probably don't pay as much attention to our gut feelings. Whereas I think we do as we get older, because a lot of the times you can look back at certain things and think, damn, I knew the answer. You know.
I wonder if that's because when we're younger, we don't question things quite so much, do we? Because, you know, we have this sort of inbuilt kind of sometimes quite blasé attitude that we know everything when we're younger, and therefore we don't question anything we do. And it's only when you look back and with the benefit of hindsight that we perhaps can question things. I guess though that one of the things that's really important is that you don't allow looking back at things that haven't worked out for you to sort of preoccupy you and prejudge maybe a sensible risk or some adventure that you might want to take when you get older.
That's so true. That is another thing. We do worry more, I think, because we've got so much experience and we've done, you know, maybe done quite a lot of things. We've got points of reference. We can refer back to that, you know, some incident that happened 5 years ago, something that happened 10 years ago. And depending on the outcome of that, that can influence how we operate now or in the future. And we can get stuck. We can get stuck in certain ways and not take chances because we're harping back to what happened 10 years ago. And in some ways that is a bit sad, because I do think that, I know for myself, reaching a certain age, I'm 60 now, and I do think to myself, oh my gosh, I don't know, whether you think so, whether it's psychological, but it's as if the time speeded up.
Absolutely.
Even this lockdown, I think to myself, is it really fleeing? I thought, where's the time gone? There's so many things I was going to do, and I thought, well, what have I done? So in some ways, I think if you're not so caught up in, wrapped up in worrying about the past, you can use this time see it as an opportunity to do some of the things that you didn't do. And in some ways, age, it can give you courage, if you like, because you're thinking, I haven't actually got much time left. You've probably got another 30, 40 years in you. But in your head, you're thinking, I need to do X, Y, Z before I get arthritis. I need to do X, Y, Z before,
It's almost like doing one of those things that they do in business, the SWOT assessment. If you have a big decision to make, isn't it? Let's say strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and what's the T for? I can't remember. It'll come back to me, but it's like the pros and cons, isn't it?
Yes, it's like doing a risk analysis.
A risk assessment, yes, of everything that you do. And I guess we have to be pleased because we can do that with the benefit of hindsight.
Yeah, and I think we're a generation that are quite lucky, because for inspiration, we've got social media. We can look at other people that are doing things, and that can motivate you. There's lots of groups like your group, Ceri, there's lots of 40 plus, 50 plus, 60 plus, 70 plus year-old women on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, that we can look to, not to copy necessarily, but to get ideas from, and be inspired by what they're doing.
Absolutely.
You have to be a little bit careful with social media, because there are people out there that present this perfect life. Do you think we have to be a bit careful though when we look at people or individuals on social media who may well present this very lovely, perfect life, always, beautifully made up, always smiling, always doing wonderful things every single day. But I do know specific individuals I know whose lives are not really like that, but the image they present on social media is this very positive, uplifting one, which is great. But maybe if you are going through a hard time and your life is not like that, and you're trying to move forward and move on, maybe I'm just wondering if it could actually be a barrier to moving on, because you think, well, my life's never going to be like that. When in fact those people's lives aren't really like that either.
Yeah, it probably could be a barrier. As you say, it depends on where you're at. It's about trying to put things into perspective, I think, and realizing that, as you've just said, because you've just said it yourself, you look at these people's lifestyles, and you know that it can't be like, real life cannot be like that all the time. So I think you just have to sort of have that awareness in your head that they might be showing you this holiday that they've been this lovely holiday, but you don't know that it's taken them 5 years or longer to save up for that, or or they've foregone not having something else so they could afford that holiday, but they're not going to say this is what it cost me necessarily. So I think you just have to get things in perspective.
But if you've gone through something difficult, Maggie, I know, we can all be on social media smiling, but I know, for instance, and obviously you have a personal story, obviously I've got a personal story, but when we've gone through something, it's how we're able to move on. If I take myself as an example, I had a life plan, obviously, with that other person involved, and when I made the decision to divorce him, my future went with it. And also my secure financial future went with it because of, as a result of that. And that takes some adjusting to. So if you're in that situation, what would you say to somebody who's going through that, having made the decision? How can they best, are there particular steps they can take to best prepare themselves to move forward?
I think, well, with regards to life coaching, you've got to be at a place where you want to move forward. Mm-hmm. You may not know how you want to move forward, but you've got to be at the place where you want to move forward. Mm-hmm. And then I think what I would say is that with life coaching, it's a case of looking at your values, looking at core beliefs, looking at where you are at now. Because if you've been through something, a challenge like that, certain things have changed in your head and in the way you act. You may have had a belief, for example, if you did a lot of traveling with your partner, you may have come to a decision, you don't want to do that anymore. That's something else. So it's looking at all these factors and looking at the different areas of your life, and trying to break down, where do you think you're not happy with? What would you like to change? And looking at how you can change that particular area of your life, what steps you can take, and then working out a plan to enable you to move forward to achieve what it is you want to achieve.
Do you think some types of people are better, in your experience, better able to cope with change than others?
On the surface, it looks that way, doesn't it? Yes, I would say so. So much of it depends on what it is they're coping with. Because you can have two people, I don't know, lose a parent. One copes with it and one falls apart, and you wonder why. But I think you need to look at the variables that make up that person. Their social background, their upbringing, financial situation. When you look at all these variables, some people are more resilient than other people because of the lifestyle they've had. Some people are more traumatized because this perhaps might be their second experience of loss, and it's just brought back memories, and they're not able to cope this time. So there's lots of reasons why it might appear that somebody can cope better than the other person.
And I guess quite often we are a lot stronger than we think we are.
I think we are. You can't. I think you can't say how strong you are until something happens to you.
Can I just ask you, one of the things that we haven't talked about, which inevitably affects many of us at some point in our lives, is actually this question of bereavement, whether it's a family member, a close friend, or whatever. And one reads a lot about the 5 stages of grief. Those 5 stages of grief. I've got 2 questions, really. One is, how are they different for different people? And do you think those 5 stages of grief apply in situations when you're not necessarily grieving the loss of a person? You're grieving something else, a change of lifestyle or a plan that hasn't worked out. So that's twofold. The first bit is about the 5 stages, really.
Yeah. Well, originally, the 5 stages was related to terminally ill people. But then psychologists took it and applied it to death, grief, somebody who'd been bereaved. But now it's a concept that's applied to different types of loss. And I would say it's a framework, guidelines, because we don't all go through those stages necessarily.
No.
You talked about losing your cat.
No, it was Ceri. It was Ceri that lost it.
Before we started, I talked about bereavement, and I said my most recent one. I've been very fortunate in my life. I haven't it's really dreadful. We were talking about close family members, and I thought, well, the only thing I can really talk about is my cat, which is dreadful, because you can't really compare losing the cat to losing a husband. But that was a big thing for me in my life at that time.
Of course it was, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I was the 2 husbands, Ceri was the cat.
Mine was a child, and my dad. No, I was, no, because it depends, because with the 5 stages, you might just go through a couple of them.
Mm-hmm.
It depends on how that loss occurred, how significant that loss was to you, and I think your own individual character. I think I was reading somewhere about this man. His mother had died from dementia. He didn't go through the 5 stages because he said he felt quite relieved. He wasn't suffering anymore.
Yeah, I can see that. But I think sometimes it's interesting because I have met people who have been quite concerned that who've been bereaved, and who seem to be at a very different stage from other friends who had been bereaved around the same time, say. Yeah. And I guess what we're saying is it's different for everyone. You might not go through all the stages, might take you much longer.
Exactly.
And one of them, I guess, might even pop up many years later.
It definitely does. You can be, I would think, you're going to go through some of the stages, but not necessarily all of them. And what happens is you may go through denial, shock, I should imagine, at the beginning. And then you could slump right into depression. And in those instances, you probably wouldn't see a life coach. If it was quite traumatic and you felt like you weren't coping, then you would probably go and see a counsellor. But certain situations further down the line could trigger that depression, as your birthdays, an anniversary could come up, and then you a memory of that person.
A memory sometimes that's totally unconnected, yes. I guess. And then you just think, why do I feel so terrible? What's this all about?
Exactly.
But it's interesting. I suppose what you're saying is not expecting too much of ourselves. And I guess that goes through life generally, through midlife, when we have to accept, as you said at the beginning, that there is so much change. But actually, there is an opportunity for change and challenge, isn't there?
There is.
And as you said, we must remember all those amazing, it is a great time to start and learn a new skill, whether it's pottery, whether it's a language, whatever you've always wanted to do, if you wanted to juggle or tap dance. But it is an opportunity, and and we can. And I think there is much more, as you say. We can look at people out there. There's much more of an acknowledgement now that we can, and there are so many more opportunities. And so I suppose it's about being optimistic, really, isn't it?
It is trying to be optimistic, and there are tools out there to help you, in the sense that you've got, if you're not feeling optimistic. Things like meditation, mindfulness, those can help you to focus on the now, center you, help you if you're worrying. Tools like journaling, writing things down.
I'm writing it down as you speak.
What, the journaling or the...
I'm just writing it down, just through the journaling.
Yeah.
But Maggie, you're an incredibly positive person, and I hope you don't mind me sort of saying here, but you've also, you were widowed not too long ago, but look how you've turned your life around. What's enabled you, do you think, to do that?
Well, I think possibly I had when I lost my second husband, I will not bore you with the details, but you know when they have those lists of all the things that happen to you in your life, that sort of you get so many stress points for each. Well, I probably had just about all of them by the time I lost my second husband.
Wow.
Anyway, so I guess I had developed a resilience. If I spoke to my father before he got dementia, he'd say, "It's that northern grit. It's that northern grit." And also, I think the other thing is sometimes we don't have a choice, do we really, at certain points in our lives? And I think I am by nature someone who likes to do things and wants to do things, and I have a curious nature, and I want to find things out. But I think it's little steps as well. I think it's kind of one day at a time, whatever, you know, and you know, I'm aware I don't want this episode to be all doom and gloom, because actually it's not. And I think, you know, the lessons one learns from a bereavement are the same for any kind of change in your life, you know, whether it is coping with all the terrible symptoms of menopause. You know, you see, I didn't have those. There was an up for me. I did not have symptoms of menopause. Amongst everything else that happened in my life, I didn't have symptoms of menopause. So maybe that's why I coped so well. But I think it's about, I think, remembering that actually we, you know, depending on our beliefs, you know, we are on this particular earth for a limited length of time, and that phrase, "life is not a rehearsal," is important, really. And I think, but I think we all do, and I say this with great belief. I think as women, generally, we often expect far too much of ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's probably because a lot has been expected of us along the way. Okay. And therefore, I think sometimes we, the idea of doing something for ourselves was, I can't sit down and read a book, or I can't afford the time to go off and do this class or that class, you know, because we don't maybe spend enough time on self-care and on ourselves, really. I don't know what you two think about that.
I think it's so important. I mean, I don't know, you know, whether you found that in getting older. I've actually become more selfish.
Yeah, I have.
I focus on myself, my needs more. You know, I don't know, you wake up one morning and think, well, I'm important. I've got to, you know, I want to do some of what, you know, some of the things that I enjoy doing. And I think when you're going through, I advocate strongly for it, when you're going through a difficult time, be gentle. You've got to be gentle. That's the time when you need to be gentle with yourself. You've got to really take care of yourself and do some of the things that maybe in the past you may have seen as frivolous, or you may still have it in your head, oh, I'm being selfish, or I'm being too indulgent if I do X, Y, Z. But I think it's so important for your mental health to do things that nurture you, make you feel as if you're being pampered. And that's one of the reasons why I did Swedish massage, so I can do that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because I thought I want to include self-care along with my coaching. I mean, obviously I can't do it now because of the lockdown, but you know. How
interesting. Yeah, it is that business of kind of, and I think I have daughters of 33 and 29, and they're quite good at self-care. You know, that generation now are quite good at self-care, far better. I mean, they don't feel guilty about having a massage and having their nails done and having their hair done and you know, spending money on themselves. They're not as guilty as we did. I used to think it was because I was from the north and it was a northern thing, you know.
Too.
I know, I heard the accent and I thought maybe it's a northern thing, but I think it not necessarily is. I just think that generationally we are different, and you know, and it's great. And I applaud the fact that they are more aware of self-care. It's a great thing, isn't it? You know?
And I think when you've got a chance to slow down, it helps to take away some of the chatter going on in your head.
Yeah.
I really do. I think if you're feeling nice and relaxed and mellow, you're less likely to be worrying. You're less likely to be thinking about the past. You're more likely to feel inspired. And again, this is where writing things down comes into play. Writing things down, and ideas come to you when you're relaxed.
Need to do more writing down, Ceri.
Yeah, and I tend to write to-do lists rather than what they call gratitude lists. My to-do lists are always very long. Although I have to say, there's something, obviously, lockdown has been a dramatic change for all of us, hasn't it? I mean, I would say we can all describe what's happened recently as like a difficult life event, because who knows if our lives are going to be the same when we come out of it. Well, they're going to be different, aren't they? But we talk about self-care, but this has given me an opportunity to take more time for myself than I've ever taken before.
Yeah.
You know, I'll go and I'll sit and I'll read a book in the garden on a weekend, which I would never have felt I could justify having a whole afternoon to read a book.
Yeah.
You know, I would have felt I should be doing something. But lockdown, I think, has forced me, and I'm sure other people as well, to slow down and do those things.
And is that why we're scared? Sorry, I apologise for interrupting. Is that why we're scared, some of us, of coming out of it, do you think?
Yeah. Well, at the moment, I'm more scared about where to go and what to touch and how close I should get to people. So that's part of, you know, I guess that's something I'm having to deal with.
Yeah.
But I think what's worrying me moving forward is we don't know what the future's going to hold now. You know, we don't know, you know, if when we came out of lockdown, they're talking about local lockdowns. I mean, I saw where I live on the top list of top 30, where they've seen an increase. I think, oh my goodness. So, you know, we could have 2 weeks of, you know, normality or semi-normality, and then that can be taken away from us again. And we don't know how long for. Because obviously at the moment it's happened in Leicester, but it could happen to any of us.
Exactly.
Whereas before we'd be able to plan with some certainty, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
And now there's that sense that we can't anymore.
Yeah, but I think you still have to plan, and I'm sure a lot of people already have. It's given them time to reflect on what they believe in. I think I know that I've enjoyed the quietness.
Yeah.
And I've noticed traffic's building up, and I think I don't want it.
Yeah.
But it has given people time to think. There's an awful lot of people won't have jobs to go to.
No.
There's people that have lost family. There's people that have been pushed, you know, to be together 24/24, where they didn't have to before. So I think it's given people a lot of time to look at their lives. And even though we don't know what the future holds, I'm not sure, did we really know what the future held before? So I think you still have to act as if there's a future. You don't know what it's going to be. And I'm not sure, as I said, you didn't know what it was going to be before.
No, that's true.
You know, I don't know. Even if we didn't have lockdown, I could say I want to do X, Y, Z next year. But I'm old enough to know that things change.
You could get down, God forbid, you could get knocked down by a bus next week, and you know, whatever, and you couldn't. Yeah. No, that's really interesting, and that's really sound advice. That we mustn't think, well, we can't plan and we can't look forward because we don't know what's going to happen. We have to move forward on the basis of where we are now and what we can do.
You know, what would you like to do? Still make those plans. I mean, you can adjust them.
Yeah, that's really positive. That's a really positive sort of thing to almost finish on, isn't it? You know, make those plans. Think forward, really.
Because if you don't make plans, it will.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's really sensible advice, actually. I like that. Thank you.
So you're going to go off and make some plans.
Yeah,
I've got
absolutely.
I've got all my pens. I'm going to be writing.
Yeah.
Are we doing today a hero
Hero products. We are doing our hero products.
Oh, I've got one today.
Oh, you've got one. Okay, show your hero product then, Maggie.
Well, my hero product is a bit of self-care, and it's the one lipstick I think probably most people can wear, and it's Charlotte Tilbury Pillow Talk. And
What colour is it then, Maggie?
it's this sort of bronzy colour, and I think most people can wear it. And for people who don't like wearing it, so people who say, oh, I never wear lipstick, it just gives you a little, and I think no matter what your skin tone, whether it's dark or light or fair or, you know, warm or cool, I think I'm going to do what the beauticians do. I'm going to put it on my hand. So there, you can see it on my hand.
Yeah.
And I think it's sort of, it's a lipstick that works for everybody, and it's a lipstick that stays on fairly well as well. So that's my little bit of my self-care hero product today.
Would you like to go next then, Valerie?
I thought long and hard about this. I thought, what, should I bring my crystals? And then, do you know what? I brought...
Your journals!
Yeah, I usually have several on the go. I mean, there's one that I sort of put down blogging ideas and whatever. And I do morning pages. I don't know if you've heard of that.
No, what's that?
It's kind of like when I wake up in the morning, after I fed the cat and made a cup of tea, I just sit down and do 3 pages, well, try and do 3 pages of whatever comes into my head. You just,
like a brain dump?
Yes.
Blimey.
Yeah.
What a brilliant idea. And how do you feel that helps you?
Things that you might be worrying about. Sometimes it's like you're writing it down and an answer starts formulating in your head. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. That's brilliant. So what are your other journals? Because you've got, said you do about 5. So you do a morning one, you do a blogging one.
Yeah, that's a new one.
Blogging ideas.
Starting. And this one, this is my sort of life coaching type one.
Talking to yourself one, giving yourself a talking to. That's brilliant. Thank you. I'm going to start doing the morning one.
What a great idea. Yeah. And also, so we should be writing things down that we're appreciative of, we're grateful of as well. Right. Well, we've been talking about self-care, and mine's a bit different. I've brought Epsom bath salts.
Oh, I love them.
Because I find it, if I can't sleep, I find the best thing for me is to run a nice hot bath, have my Epsom bath salts, and really relax before going to bed.
Yeah.
So this one I don't use any particular makeup, whichever one's on sale.
Yeah.
But I just ordered them yesterday. The Boots at the moment, they've got some half-price ones, so I've ordered some half-price Epsom bath salts. But I just find it makes such a difference to going to sleep. And along that same line, because some people, if they don't like to have a bath, they like to shower, you can always get a magnesium oil.
Yeah.
Because magnesium is absorbed through your skin.
Yeah.
And this was actually recommended. I wasn't sleeping, and a friend basically marched me into Boots and said, "You're buying this," and that works quite well as well for those that don't want to have a soak in the bath, and just to help sleep.
And I have to say, the Epsom salts are amazing. I have arthritis, and the Epsom salts are amazing for aches and pains, and for anybody who takes any exercise and might have overdone it generally, or just who has aches and pains. Epsom salts. My mum used to swear by them, and I think my grandma did. And I think they've been rediscovered. I think they're amazing. So thank you, Ceri, for that. That's brilliant.
The thing is, we kind of think we have to always try things that are new, and sometimes you've got the things which are really old, tried, tested, not expensive, that have really stood the test of time, that can benefit us all. I guess it's a bit like going back to basics, really, isn't it?
Yeah. Going back to basics and looking forward and making plans.
Exactly, and writing it down.
Writing it down.
And writing it down. I'm going to buy myself a nice new notebook now.
So Valerie, thank you so much for joining us today. Are there any sort of perhaps last minute tips you'd like to sort of finish off sort of sharing with people, something they can take away apart from writing, in addition to writing things down?
I think as we move out as lockdown, as more things open up to us and we gain more freedom, just be easy on yourself. Do give some thought to where you think you want your future as such to go. Reflect, take some time out. If you haven't done it, take some time out and reflect.
Oh, so you've got a friend.
Yeah. Your pussy categories.
And if you enjoyed some solitude and the peace and quiet, don't let that go. I think, don't be eager to get back into the hustle bustle. Enjoy the silence, enjoy nature if you've had a chance to, be able to go out for walks in parks and things like that. They're really helpful. They just self-care, basically. Self-care, and it also gives you time to slow down and free your mind of chatter, and gives you time to think about some of the things that are important to you.
That's such good advice, Valerie. Thank you so much for that.
How can people find you, Valerie, if they want to get in touch?
There's my website, Visualize and Bloom, Instagram, and also LinkedIn under Valerie A. Lewis. Yep.
Great. Well, I guess we've got some great takeaway points from that. So I guess that's goodbye for this week. But I just want to add something which I wouldn't normally do, because this is on Friday, July the 10th. They've been talking about people going through life changes and inspiration. And I've been very lucky to preview a film called Olympia, which is the documentary about the life of Olympia Dukakis. And they very kindly going to live stream the UK premiere on the Fab After 50 Facebook page on July the 10th at 6 o'clock, and it's free. So if people are looking for inspiration, just go to the Fab After 50 page, 6 o'clock on Friday, July the 10th. And as long as I can get the technology to work, because I've got to do something at my end, which I haven't done before, it should be there. And there's a fabulous scene, probably quite a long way into it, where, because Olympia, if you don't know who she is, she's the Oscar-winning actress who was in Moonstruck. She played Cher's mother. She's been in Steel Magnolias. She's had such an interesting life. And her family originally from Greece, and she went back to visit the village in Greece that her parents had left. Yeah. And that particular scene I found so touching, and I don't want to give too much away because I want people to see the film and enjoy it for themselves. But afterwards, I want to talk about that because it was such a touching scene, and it makes you wonder how different your life could have been if even if our parents had taken a different path in life. Yeah. So, it's a fabulous scene, and that's Friday at 6 o'clock.
So next Friday, the 10th.
I don't normally do any sales pitches.
No, but that's
thank you for
telling us. That's
but it's I think it's something that we can all enjoy, and it's free. So even better. So on that note, I'm going to say goodbye and say look forward to seeing everybody next week. And again, thank you, Barry, for joining us. Thank you, Maggie.
Thank you for having me.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
And we'll see you again next week.
And
have a good week.
Thanks.
And enjoy coming out of lockdown. Bye.
Bye.